Today we're going to learn how to do a search field inside a website. And this is something you guys requested of me, so we're going to do that today. And as you guys can see right in front of me here, I have a very basic demo that we're going to build today. Now, what you guys wanted was a way to search for content inside your website. I got a lot of requests from you guys doing, searching for images or articles or users. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to search for articles inside this website here. Now, before you guys start asking, well, what about searching for images? Well, the way we're going to do it today is the exact same way if you were to search for images or users or posts or something you might have inside your website. It's the exact same way you're going to do it. So doing it this way is also going to teach you how to search for images if you were to do that. So before we get started coding, I want to show you guys what exactly we're going to be building. Inside my website here, inside the demo, I have a search field at the top where you can type something in and search for it. Inside my front page, I have the title of the page, which right now is the front page. I have all the articles inside the website listed underneath here. And as you guys can see, I only have 2 articles inside my website. And I could easily do more, but just for the example here, I thought 2 would be plenty. So the idea here is that me as a user inside this website here, let's say I'm inside a really beautiful website, which doesn't look as ugly as this one, but it has a search field at the top of the page. Now, what I want to do here is I want to search for something inside this website. Now, what we're going to search in is going to be up to us. Right now, I just set the limit to, being searching for articles inside the website. And the only thing you guys need to do in order to actually, tell the website what it should actually search for, whether it being, content inside pages or articles or images, is going to depend on what you have inside your database and what you allow for people to actually search for. Again, we're going to get to that when we do the coding, but just to let you guys know, you can do whatever you want. So what we have here is 2 articles, and I want to search for maybe the title of one of these articles. Maybe I want to search for some kind of recipe. So I'm going to type recipe inside the search field, and I click search, and then we get 1 article. Now, do notice that you can actually click this article because this is the search page, and we want to know what exactly is inside this full article. Now, right now, I don't actually have any, a lot of text inside the article. If there were a lot more text and you just want to give people, a preview, and then when they click the article, they can see an entire article, then this is the way to do it. So what I did here was I allowed people to actually click on this article, and it opens up an article page that has the full article inside of it, okay? Now, of course, we should have a menu inside this website, so we could actually go quickly back to the front page or have the search field available at the top inside the header. I didn't do that for this demo here, but it's basically just the same concept. So I could also go inside my search field and say, what if I want to search for an author inside one of these articles? I could actually search for Daniel. Do notice I'm not typing Daniel with a big D, but the author down here does actually have a big D. When I click search, it still finds the article inside the search page. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that the user can actually search for the title, the content, the date it was actually posted, and the user who posted it. Okay, so we're going to do a pretty decent search field that's not really complicated, but still complicated enough so we can actually get a decent result out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up our page. This is the actual page that we have created right now. Inside my coding document, there's nothing inside the index file other than just the basic HTML5 setup. Inside this website here, the first thing we're going to do is create a database connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. I'm going to save it inside my root folder. I'm going to save it as dbh.php. Notice I'm not creating any kind of sub folders for database files or that sort of thing. So if you guys want to, you can just go ahead and do that. You don't have to do the directory exactly as I'm doing it. Now inside this database file, I'm going to go ahead and open up my PHP code. And I'm going to go ahead and create a database connection. So I'm going to go ahead and say we have a variable called con. I'm going to set it equal to MySQLi underscore connect, parentheses, semicolon. And we could just create variables up here. Let's actually go and do that. So we're going to create a variable for the server address. So we're going to say db server, or we just say server because it doesn't really make sense to say db server, equal to localhost, like so. I'm just going to copy paste this a couple of times. So we're going to say 4 times. So we have 4 of these. Inside the second one, we're going to go ahead and say we have a username, we have a password, and we have a database name. Now we're going to go ahead and change the actual values of these variables. So we're going to go ahead and say the username is going to be root, because that's the username for my local host. We're going to change the password to nothing, because that's the password for my local host. Again, if you guys have different values in here, you guys need to change it according to your database. My database name is going to be db PHP search, just to give it some kind of name that matches somewhat what we're going to do in this episode. Again, you guys can name it whatever you want to. I'm just giving it this name here. Inside my variable connection down here, I'm going to go ahead and include these parameters, or these variables we just created, inside the function. So we're going to say we have a server, we have a username, we have a password, and we have a database name, like so. So now we have a database connection, and we can actually go ahead and include this connection inside our front page. So I'm going to go to the top here, going to open up my PHP tags, like so, and we're going to say include single quotes db8.php. So now we have a database connection at the top of our page. Now the next thing I want to do is include a style sheet, because we will need to include a style sheet at some point, just to make it look somewhat nice inside the browser, so we don't look at something really ugly that potentially will work, but you know, it should look somewhat nice. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. I'm going to save it inside the root folder as well, call it style.css. And I'm going to go ahead and link to this style sheet inside my index file. So underneath my title, inside my head tag, I'm going to go ahead and say we have a link, which is a style sheet. The type is a text/CSS, and the hyperreference is going to be style.css. So just a very basic link. So now that we have this, one thing I would like to do in order to make this easier when we have to create this website is create a header.php file and take all the header content and put it inside this one file, because then we can just link to it, which makes it a lot easier if we have to make changes. So I'm going to go ahead and copy everything from the beginning body tag. I'm going to delete it. Then I'm going to create a new document, paste it in, and save it inside my root folder as header.php. Inside my index page, we now need to link to header.php. So we're just going to go ahead and copy the include tag we have on top of the header.php file, paste it in, and instead say we want to include the header.php. So now by doing this, we automatically get the header.php inside the index file, and we automatically get the database connection inside the header, meaning that we're linking to both of these. So now that we have this, we need to go ahead and start creating the actual form we're going to use in order to create the search field. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say we have a form. I'm going to open up the form tags, and we have an input, which is going to be a text type. The name is going to be search. And we're going to go ahead and have a placeholder called search, like so. And now we have that. The next thing we need to create is a button. So I'm going to go underneath here and create a button that's going to have a type set to submit. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a name called submit. Again, you guys could potentially name it something differently than just submit, because it's not really a good name for it. We could call it submit search. Let's actually go ahead and do that. So we're going to say submit search. Inside the form tag, we're going to go ahead and tell it which kind of action we want, and we need to set a method. So I'm going to say action, which is going to be the document that we load once we click the submit button or the search button, which is going to be a file called search.php. Again, search.php is going to be the search page that we load up with all the search results inside the website. Once we do this, we need to make sure we include the method, which I'm going to set as a post method, like so. And that's basically what we need for the search form. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually get all the articles inside the website showing inside the front page. Now, right now, we don't have any articles inside our database. We don't even have a database yet. So the next thing we're going to do is create this database. I'm going to go ahead and go inside my database, which is my PHP MyAdmin. Again, you guys should know how to do this by now. If you don't, then there's a tutorial at the beginning of this series here showing you guys how to install PHP MyAdmin. I'm going to go ahead and go into PHP MyAdmin, go to databases up on the top here. I'm going to create a new database, and just to check what we called it inside our dbh.php, we called it db.php search. At least I did. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this name inside my database, create the database, and now we have the database, but without any kind of tables in it. So to create these tables, I'm going to go ahead and go inside the SQL tab up in the top here. I'm going to click it, and then we need to create the actual tables and the articles that goes inside the tables. Again, there's other ways to create it inside PHP MyAdmin. I think it's good practice to type it in manually inside the SQL tab up here, so we're going to do that. So inside this field here, we're going to go ahead and, well, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you guys can actually see it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a table. So I'm going to say create space table space. I'm going to say article, which is going to be the name of this table, space, parentheses, semicolon. Then inside the parentheses, we're going to go ahead and write in all the different columns we're going to have inside the table. So the first one is going to be an ID, which is going to be a unique number for each article that's actually inside this table. So we're going to go ahead and set this one to a integer type, which has 11 different numbers inside of it. Then we're going to say space, not null, space, primary key. And then we're going to set it to auto underscore increment, which means that each time we get a new article inside this table, it's automatically going to increase the ID by 1, comma. The next one we're going to get is the title of the actual article. Now, I decided to name these a bit differently, so we should probably not call this one ID. We're going to go ahead and call it A underscore ID, and the A just stands for article, so there's nothing special about the A. It's just a way for us to name the actual columns inside the article table. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new column down here. I'm going to call it A underscore title. We're going to set this as a varchar type. I'm going to set the limit inside the parentheses to 256. Again, you guys could choose to set this as a text type if you wanted to. Then there's no limit on the actual characters they can actually type for the title. I'm going to set this one to not null. The next line, I'm going to go ahead and create one called text, which is going to be the actual content of the article. So I'm going to say not test, but text, like so. I'm going to set it to a text type because we just want it to be an infinite amount of text. Then we're going to set it to not null, comma, next line. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy the second column we created called title, paste it in underneath here, and we're going to go ahead and change the title to author. So we can actually get the name of the actual person who wrote this article. Now, the last one we're going to do is the date. So we do actually need to get a date for the actual post. So we're going to set A underscore date. Again, the reason I'm doing A underscore is because if I were to just write date, it would actually highlight a different color, which means that we're actually doing one of these types over here. So by writing A underscore, we avoid getting this weird color. So this type is going to be a date time format, which is a very specific format that has to look like the datetime format inside SQL. And again, we're going to get to that once we create the insert statements to actually insert articles inside this table. The next thing we're going to do is set it to not null. And now that we did this, we can actually go ahead and create all the different inserts we need inside this table here. Let's actually go ahead and create the actual table by saying we want to click go underneath here. And as you guys can see, now we have a table called article. If I go inside the article, you guys can see that we have no data inside the actual article. We just have the rows in here. So I'm going to go ahead and go inside my database again. I'm going to go to the top where we have the SQL tab. And then we're going to go ahead and insert the actual articles. So I'm going to say insert into article, which is the table we just created. I'm going to go ahead and say parentheses, values, parentheses, semicolon. I'm just going to go and move down values just so it looks a bit nicer, a bit more structured so we can actually see what's going on. And inside the article parentheses up here, I'm going to go ahead and insert the column names of article. So the first one we had was the ID. We don't have to insert that inside article here because it's auto incremented. We don't need to do anything with it. So the second one was the title of the actual article. So we're going to say a underscore title, comma, space. Then we're going to say a underscore text, which was the second one. Then we're going to say a underscore author, comma, a underscore date. Then we're going to go and move down to values. I'm going to go ahead and insert the values inside these two things here. Now, I do actually have the text next to me here. All the different text I used inside my demo. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the description in case you guys want to have the exact same text as me. Maybe you don't, you can just write in your own values. I'm just going to go ahead and use the same text as I used in my demo. So inside the values, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to go ahead and say single quotes. And inside the single quotes is where we're going to insert the actual value of the actual title of the first post or the first article. So I'm going to go ahead and say we called this one 50 Great Summer Recipes, which like I just said, I just copied from my text next to me, comma, single quotes. And then the text inside of it was, there are many recipes you can create for the summer, which involves grilling, boiling, frying, and toasting. I know it doesn't really make a lot of sense, the text, but it's just some kind of text we can have inside of here. Now the third value is going to be the author name. So I'm going to go ahead and say comma, space, and I'm going to write single quotes. Inside the single quotes, I'm going to go ahead and say we have a admin, because why not? We can just insert any kind of name we want to. It could also be my name or Susan or something. Space. And then the last one is going to be the date time. And remember, the date time has a very specific format that we need to insert. So the first thing is going to be the year. I'm going to go ahead and say 2017 dash. And then we're going to go ahead and set the month, which is going to be 11 dash. Then I'm going to say 25, which is going to be the 25th of November. Then we're going to say space, because now we need to insert the actual time and not the date. So we're going to go ahead and say we have 12, which is the hours, colon. We're going to go ahead and set the minutes to 23, colon, and then the seconds. So we're going to go ahead and say 11. So this is what we need to insert. Now I'm just going to go ahead and copy what we created here, paste it underneath it, and I'm just going to go ahead and change the second insert to something else. Again, I have all the text next to me here, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy in the values I'm going to go ahead and insert into my database here. So the second title is going to be a series of computer software, just to have something. And the text is going to be the following. I'm just going to insert it here, like so. In this article, you'll learn about some of the software used on computers. This involves basic software and more advanced software used by developers. As an example, I'm going to change the author down here to Daniel Nielsen, which is my name. You guys can type in your own name if you want to. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the date over here so it isn't the exact same date. Now, again, because we have seconds over here, the likelihood of an article having the exact same name and the date is going to be very unlikely, which is going to make sense a bit later when we do actually need to open up the actual article inside a separate page. So we need to make sure that any article in here does not have the same title and does not have the same date. Okay. Having said that, the articles could have the same names, but it should not have the same date then. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this data inside my database. I'm just going to go ahead and say go. And as you guys can see, we get no errors inside my article. We have two columns down here. I'm just going to zoom out for you guys. That we have two rows in here with the stuff we just inserted. Okay. So now that we have some data inside the database, we can actually start spitting it out inside our front page. And this is all the data we're going to use in this episode. Like I said, this could be a table that had something regarding images for the users. It could be something regarding post or maybe user data, the actual users listed inside the website. So you can change this into whatever you want to. It doesn't have to be an article like I did here. So going back to our coding here, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the index file. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath the form and I'm going to go ahead and create a h1 tag, which is going to have the actual title of the actual page. So I'm going to say this is the front page, just to have something. I'm going to go underneath here. I'm going to create a h2 tag that says all articles. And then we need to actually list all the articles underneath here. So I'm going to go ahead and go underneath and create a div box that will contain all the articles that we get from the database, which in this case is just going to be 2 articles. And I'm going to go ahead and give this div a class because we will need to style this at one point. So I'm going to set a class attribute and I'm going to set the name to article dash container. Inside this container, we're going to go ahead and open up our PHP code with a couple of PHP tags. And inside the PHP tags, we're going to go ahead and write a select statement in SQL that will go into the database and select some data. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable, call it SQL. So the equal to double quotes. And we're going to go ahead and say select all from articles. I think it was article in single and not plural. Yeah, it is. And now that we have this, we can just go ahead and close off this line of code. Underneath it, we're going to go ahead and actually run this line of code inside the database and get some kind of result from it. So we're going to go ahead and say we have a variable called result. We're going to set it equal to MySQLi underscore query, parentheses. And inside these parentheses, we first of all need the connection for the actual database, which we included inside our header, inside the dbh.php. We called it variable con, comma, and then we need to have the actual SQL sentence or the SQL statement that we need to query inside the database, which is up here. So I'm just going to copy in my variable called SQL. And now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and check if we had any kind of results from this select statement. So underneath here, I'm going to go ahead and say we have a variable called query results with a big R, just to make it somewhat neat, is equal to MySQLi underscore num underscore rows, parentheses, which is going to check how many rows of results we get from this query up here. Now, if the query up here was written correctly, we should get 2 results from the database because we have 2 articles. So I'm going to go ahead and say that we should actually run the result over here and see how many results did we get, which would be 2 by now. Underneath here, I'm going to go ahead and create a if statement, like so. And inside the if statement, I'm going to go ahead and say, well, if we had some kind of results from this check up here that were above 0, meaning that we had some kind of result, then we should run whatever code is inside the if statement. And the code inside the if statement is going to be a while loop that simply keeps spitting out all the different articles we have inside the database. So as long as we have a result from the database, it's going to keep spitting it out. Like so. Inside the condition, we're going to go ahead and say that we have a variable called row, which is equal to MySQLi underscore fetch underscore assoc, parentheses, which is going to be the one that contains all the data from the actual results inside the database. So I'm going to go ahead and say we have a query up here that we run called $result, and I'm going to insert it inside the parentheses of this $row down here. So now that we have this, we should essentially get all the results from the database, and now we just need to tell it what we need to write inside the website. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and echo some kind of string, which is going to be a div box that contains all the stuff we get from the database. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this one off as well, like so. And inside this div box, we want to write a h3 tag, which is a header 3. I'm going to close it off as well, like so. And inside the h3, we need to get the actual data from the database that had the title of the actual article. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, now we're switching from a string to PHP code. So we're going to go ahead and say double quotes to cancel out the echo string. And inside the double quotes, I'm going to say punctuation 2 times because now we want to write some kind of PHP code. And we're going to go ahead and write $row, brackets. And inside the brackets, we're going to go ahead and write the name of the actual column that we want to spit out. In this case, it's called a underscore title, which means that now we should actually get the title inside our front page. If we were to just go ahead and copy what we have here, paste it underneath here, like so, I'm going to go ahead and change it from title to text. So we get the text from the article. I'm going to change the h3 tags to simple paragraph tags because it looks better. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this one more time, actually 2 more times. The second one is going to have not the text, but the date. And the third one is going to have the author. Like so. So now we should be getting some kind of results inside our index file. If I were to go inside my index page, refresh, you guys can see we get some stuff in here. First of all, we have a search bar up here that we forgot to include some kind of text inside the button. We're going to do that. But we get the front page, we get all the article title here, and we get each article from inside the database. This is one article, and this is the second one. So now we need to style it so it looks somewhat nice. And when we style this, we don't need to style anything else inside the website because we're just going to reuse the same styling. So just to get it over with, we're going to do that right now. Inside my form, we're going to go ahead and give it some kind of text first. So we're going to say search inside the button here, just so we have the text. Refresh, as you guys can see, now we get the text up here. Inside my style sheet, we're going to go ahead and start out by saying that we want to have some kind of styling for the body, because we need to change the background color of the entire website just to make the articles pop out more. So we're going to say we have a body tag, curly brackets, and we want to set the background color to hashtag F3, 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 semicolon. Then we want to set all the fonts to Arial of some sort, just so we get some kind of text that doesn't look very ugly. So we're going to set the font family to Arial. And then we're going to go ahead and style one of the classes we created inside our index page, which is the one called article container, which is going to be the one that contains all the articles we spit out from the database. So going back inside our style sheet, we're going to say article dash container, curly brackets. And inside the curly brackets, we're going to set a width to 900 pixels. We're going to set a background color to white, which is going to be FFF. And we're going to go ahead and set a padding just to get some, some kind of border around all the articles so it doesn't touch the side of the browser. So we're going to say padding. And we're going to go ahead and set it to 30 pixels just to have some kind of border. Underneath the article container class, we're going to go ahead and style the article box, the one that contains the actual post inside our index file. Well, we didn't actually create that yet, so let's actually go and do that. Inside the div tag, inside the while statement here, we're going to go ahead and give it a class name. So we're going to set equal to, single quotes, and we're going to go ahead and call this one article dash box. Then we're going to go ahead and style this one so we can get some, some spacing away from the articles when they list underneath each other. If you guys see inside the website, you can't really see when the first article stops and when the next one starts. So we need to create that spacing. So we're going to say we have a class called article dash box. We're going to set a padding bottom to 30 pixels. We're also going to go ahead and set a width to make sure that the width of the article goes all the way to the left side and right side of the article container. Actually, I don't think we actually need this, but we can just write it just to have it. So now that we have this, let's actually go ahead and style the input and the button we have inside the search field. So I'm going to go ahead and say we have a input inside the website. It has a padding, which is going to be 0 pixels from top and bottom and 20 pixels from left and right, just to make sure the text when we type inside the search field doesn't touch the sides of the search field. So inside the input here, we're also going to go ahead and include a new width. We're going to set it to 300 pixels. We're going to set a new height, which is going to be 40 pixels. And we're going to go ahead and set a font size to 22. We're going to go ahead and copy this, and we're going to go ahead and do this for the button as well. So we're going to say, instead of input, we're going to say button. We're going to go ahead and remove the padding because we don't need that. We're going to go ahead and change the height to 44 pixels because the input is going to have a default border that we don't have inside the button. So we're going to go ahead and include a height that's slightly higher just to make it match up. The width should not be 300 because that's way too much. We're going to set it to 100. And this is basically all the styling we need for an entire website. Let's actually go and refresh the page. And as you guys can see, it changes the entire page layout. So now we have the articles down here that are actually separated. So we have some spacing in between. And we can actually see the text looks somewhat nice. Now the next thing we need to do is when we do actually go inside our code or inside the website, inside our index file, and we click search inside the search field, something needs to happen. We need to go in to the search page, which is the search.php file we included up here, and do something with the actual search string that we typed inside the search field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. I'm going to save it inside my root folder, and I'm going to go ahead and call it search.php. Again, this is just a search page where we're also going to have all the code that is related to the actual search function. Now, the first thing we're going to go ahead and write in here is going to be the title of the actual page. So I'm going to go ahead and say we have an h1 tag, just like we did inside the index file where we created the front page tag here. So we're going to go ahead and write we have a search page. Underneath the h1 tag, we're going to go ahead and include the article container that we include it inside the front page, because we need to have some kind of container for all the articles when we do actually get the search results. So why not just use the same one? Again, you guys can change it if you want to. This is just my demo, so I'm going to do it this way when it comes to styling. Now inside this file, we also need to make sure we include the header.php, because the header has some information we need, such as the actual database connection and the style sheet. So we're going to go ahead and go to the top of our site here, and we're just going to go ahead and copy what we have inside our index file up here and paste it at the top. So we do actually get the entire header. So now we should automatically get the database connection and the link to the style sheet. Inside the article container, we're going to go ahead and start writing some PHP code. So I'm going to open up my PHP tags, close them off again. And inside the PHP tags, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create an if statement that says if we actually clicked the submit button from the search form. So we did actually call this one submit-search, I believe. So we're going to say inside the if statement, inside the condition is set parentheses, $_post, brackets, and inside the brackets we want to search for submit-search, like so. So now if we did actually get to this web page and we did actually click the search button, then it's going to go ahead and run the code inside the if statement. Inside the if statement, we're going to go ahead and create a variable, which is going to be the variable that contains the information we typed in inside the search form. So we're going to say we have a variable called search. I'm going to set it equal to MySQLi underscore real underscore escape underscore string. And I'm doing this, at least this function here, because we want to make sure when the user types something inside the search form that they don't try to do any kind of SQL injection inside our database. So we need to make sure that the data we get from the user is safe. Anytime we get anything from the user, we need to make sure we escape some kind of weird characters inside what they typed in, because we don't want them to mess with our database, okay? So inside of here, inside the parentheses, we're going to go ahead and include the database connection, which was variable con, comma, and the second parameter is going to be the actual thing that the user typed in from the index file or inside the index page. So we're going to go ahead and say we have a $_post, brackets, and then we called this one, let's actually go ahead and see what we called it. We called it search. So we're going to go ahead and say we have a post method called search, like so. So now that we got the actual search word that the user typed in, let's actually go ahead and go underneath here and type the SQL sentence we're going to go ahead and query inside the database, because we need to actually search the database for what the user actually typed in. So we're going to go ahead and create a variable. We're going to call it SQL, set it equal to double quotes, and close it with a semicolon. Now inside the double quotes, we're going to go ahead and create a select statement. So we're going to say select. Now I'm just going to go ahead and say we select everything from the article table inside the database. You could just say you want to search for the title or something else. We do actually need to make sure we include from in here. There we go. And after we get the table name that we actually want to search in, we're going to go ahead and create a where statement, because we're going to tell it that we want to search a specific column for the keyword that the user typed in inside the search field. So the column I'm going to go ahead and check here is going to be the one we called a_title. So first of all, we're going to check if the title from any kind of article inside our article table has the keyword that the user searched for. Now, typically in the past, you would actually go ahead and set it equal to single quotes and then the actual variable up here we call search, like so. But because we want to search for part of the title, for an actual keyword and not the entire title name, we need to do it slightly different. So I'm going to go ahead and say we don't want to set it equal to. Instead, we're going to go ahead and write a keyword called like. So we're going to go ahead and say we have some kind of word that needs to sound like something inside the title. Now, in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and say single quotes. And then we need to type the actual search word that we want to search for. Now, before we do this, we need to actually include these percentage symbols around the variable name. So we're going to go ahead and write 2 of them and then copy the variable name inside in between these percentage signs or the symbols. So now that we did this, we're now checking the title if it has any kind of keyword like the word the user typed in inside the search field. Okay. Now, this is not enough because we also want to search the text inside the article. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and say space. We're going to say, or we have, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. We have here not a title, but we have a text inside this article that is like the search that the user actually searched for. So we're just going to go ahead and keep copying this. And again, if I didn't want the user to search for the author, then I'm just not going to include the author inside this, string we're creating here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and keep copying this. I'm just going to go ahead and say we have an or statement. I'm going to copy it afterwards or paste it in afterwards. I'm going to change the text to author. I'm going to copy it in again or paste it in again. I'm going to change it from text to date. So now we're essentially checking everything inside the article for the search word that the user typed in. Okay. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and run the actual SQL statement inside the database. We're going to actually query it inside the database. So we're going to go and say we have a $result that is equal to MySQLi underscore query parentheses. And then we're going to go ahead and say we're going to go ahead and take the database connection, which is called $con, comma, and then the actual query or the actual SQL sentence we're going to query inside the database, which is $SQL. So now that we did this, we need to check again if we had any kind of results. So I'm going to go ahead and say we have a variable called query results without the S and with a big R equal to MySQLi underscore num underscore rows parentheses semicolon. Now inside of here, we're going to go ahead and get the result because we need to check the result that we have up here if we have any kind of results from the result variable we have up here. So if there's any kind of articles that matches what we search up here, then it's going to go ahead and fetch them. Okay, or at least check how many of them there are, because there can be more than one result, which is a neat thing about doing it this way. So now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and create an if statement. Now this if statement inside the condition is going to check if the query result has more than one or more than 0 results from the database. Because if there are no results, then we need to give it some kind of error message. So we're going to say if it's greater than 0, then it should do something inside the code here. If there's no results, then we're going to go ahead and create an else statement that says we do actually need to echo this out, like so. There are no results matching your search, like so. So now we have this kind of error message. We can go ahead and go inside the if statement and write the code that we need in order to actually get out the results. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and say we have a while loop. And again, we're doing this very much like we did on the front page. We're just going to go ahead and insert the results inside a variable called row. So we're going to say $row, because we're only running this code if we did actually have a result. And if we do, we're going to insert it inside this variable here. So we're going to go ahead and say it is equal to MySQLi underscore fetch as suck, parentheses. And again, we're going to go ahead and check the result up here and get all the data from the database. Inside the while loop, we're going to go ahead and copy what we have inside the index file. Then we created this echo that had, the actual div box with the data inside of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it, insert it inside my while loop here, and save it. So now if I were to go inside my website, refresh it, and search for something, I can go and search for any kind of keyword that we have inside these articles. So if I say we want to search for summer, which is down here, I can write summer, search, and now you guys can see we get a search result. Okay, we could also go ahead and echo out if we were to go on top of the actual check here, that if we have any kind of results from the check up here that checks how many rows we got, we can actually go ahead and copy this variable, go underneath the if statement, say echo, there are space, then we're going to go ahead and say we have a PHP variable called query results, punctuation, double quotes, results, actually space and then results. Because then it's actually telling the user how many results there are from the actual search they made. So we're going to go ahead and copy this or save this, go inside our browser, refresh, And as you guys can see, it says there are 1 result. So now that we did this, let's actually go ahead and create the actual article page that opens up in a new page when you click the actual article down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go down to our echo inside the actual article that it spits out and echo out a link around the actual div that links up to the actual article. So I'm going to say we have a anchor around the div box. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the anchor tag before and close the anchor tag right after. We're going to go ahead and set a hyperreference inside the anchor tag, which is going to be equal to single quotes. And inside the single quotes, we're going to go ahead and link to a page we haven't created yet called article.php. Then we're going to go ahead and say we want something else inside the URL. So we're going to say question mark. And now we need to decide what exactly we're going to go ahead and use in order to open up a specific article from our database. Now, when we did actually create the database, I mentioned that we needed to make sure that there were no titles or dates that matched up with another article. You know, one of these could match up, but not both. So we can't both have a date and a title that matches with another article. Because when we want to open an article, we need to make sure we open up the article that has a specific title and a specific date. So I'm going to go ahead and say after the question mark here that we want to open up an article that has a title set equal to the result we get from the database called title down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy the code. Remember, we want to close off the string and open up PHP code, and then afterwards we want to open up the string again. So we need the double quotes around it. I'm going to paste it in like so. And we do actually need to take this single quote in front of it here, in front of the equal sign, delete it, and move it behind the actual PHP code here. So we have double quote, single quote at the end here. Okay, so don't mess up the double quotes and single quotes. It needs to look like this. After this, after the double quote and before the single quote, we're going to go ahead and say and, or the ampersand symbol. We want to have a date that is equal to the date down here. So again, I'm going to go ahead and copy the date and paste it in right before the single quote and right after the equal sign, like so. So now we're going to go ahead and create the actual article page. So I'm going to open up a new document. I'm going to save it as article.php. And inside of here, we're just going to go ahead and copy the index file. So we're just going to copy everything from here and paste it in. We're going to go to the top and we're going to go and delete the search form because I don't see why we should have a search form inside the article page. So let's just delete it. We're going to change the name from front page to article page. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete the h2 tag here because we don't need to say all articles. So now we just have the article container and we need to make sure we select an article that has the search criteria we typed in inside the link we just created. Now, just to show you guys, if we go back to our front page, I refresh the site. If I search for summer, click search, you guys can see we now have a link. If I click the link, you guys can see we open up all the articles inside our database. This is why we need to limit it because inside the URL, right now it does actually have the parameters that we can use in order to narrow down which article we want to get from the database. So going back inside the article.php file, we're going to go ahead and go inside the PHP tags before we start doing all the code here. And I'm going to go ahead and get the actual data from the URL. So we're going to say we have a variable called title, which is equal to, and we're going to go ahead and copy a piece of code inside our search field, which was the one that prevented users from actually messing up our database, which is up here inside the search variable. I'm going to copy it and paste it right after. So now we need to change the search criteria from search inside the post method to title. Because when we created the actual link inside our search page, you guys can see that the title is equal to the title. So the title here is the keyword before the equal sign, okay? So just to make sure you guys understand, this is not going to be a post method as well. This is going to be a get method because when we go inside the browser, we can actually see the search result inside the URL, meaning that this is going to be a get method, not a post method, because a post method we can't see inside the URL, okay? That's the difference between the two. So now that we have this one, we can actually go ahead and copy it, paste underneath here, and change it from date or from title to date, and change it inside the get method as well. So now that we have this, we can actually go inside our select statement. We want to select everything from article where a_title, the column, is equal to single quotes. Then we want to get the variable called title and a_date is equal to single quotes $date. So now we should only be getting one article from the database, okay? So now that we have this, I do actually think we're done. So let's actually go ahead and go back to the website, go back to the front page just to test this. Let's search for something else than summer. Let's actually go ahead and search for Daniel because we have the name down there. I'm gonna say Daniel. Okay, we got one article, which is nice. Let's actually go back again and search for the date because I want to search for any kind of article that's written in 2017. So I'm gonna say 2017. And now you guys can see we get 2 article results. And it does actually say there are 2 results, okay? I can go ahead and click on one of these articles. And as you guys can see, it opens up one article inside a separate page, depending on what's inside the URL. So this is how we can create a search field inside a website. Now again, this is a basic example of a search field. I hope you guys found this useful and it wasn't too long, and I'll see you guys next time.